You're being so nice and quiet. Good girl.
72-year-old Shawnee Chasser calls herself a hippy-dippy, tree-hugging grandma, but she does more than hug trees. She lives in them.
Started a long time ago. I've lived in teepees. I traveled around the country in my van protesting the war and other things. The last thing I wanted to do was live in a tree.
But what is it about living in a treehouse that makes it better than an actual house?
Everything from the trees to the flowers, to the rainstorms, to the croaking frogs all night long.
She has lived in tree houses since 1990, but in 2006, she bought this amazing property in Miami for her son, Joshua.
He needed a house. So I found this house and I went, this is the house for him. He's gonna love it. And when he went through the gate, he said, Mom, I wanna live here my whole life. And he did.
In 2009, Joshua died from a sudden heart attack. He was just 32 years old. And since then, Shawnee has lived here to keep his memory alive. And over time, she turned this treehouse into a tree home where she lives all the time. But what about the actual home on the property? Well, she rents that out to friends.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's like paradise. I mean, it's beautiful. This was what Josh loved. I mean, this was his paradise.
Now, this treehouse is incredible. It has a working fridge, it has running water, and it even has a working oven. But officials from Miami-Dade County say the structure is illegal and they want it gone. Since 2015, they've been fighting with Shawnee to tear down her treehouse because she never got approval for any of it, something she does not deny.
All not permitted, but legal.
But the county does not agree with her. They told the Washington Post that when building on your property, you have to do it by the county's standards and regulations so the homeowner is kept safe and you're keeping your neighbors safe. At first, they offered to help fix the property. They would have contractors walk through the property and help get rid of the current buildings, then have professionals rebuild it with permits and up to code. But after 8 years of not complying and $70,000 in fines and other fees, Shawnee finally gave in. And on Monday, September 18th, the demolition started. And although the treehouse might be gone, Shawnee is not going anywhere.
Put a mattress in the living room, have fans go and open the windows, and if I get claustrophobic or an anxiety attack, I'll just come out in the middle of the night and stay in that nice little swing.
For UMTV, I'm Harvey Duplock.
Look at this. It was cute. And they looked cuddly and I liked it, so I wanted to save them.
Meet Anya Gupta, an 8th grader from Boca Raton, Florida. She's a Girl Scout, a sister, and a daughter, but to penguins, she is a protector.
In kindergarten, we had to do a project on penguins, a penguin report, and I found out that they were endangered and I wanted to help.
And so she started researching, she discovered different organizations that were doing it, and it just all of a sudden blossomed as her mission in life to save the penguin.
Penguins come in all shapes and sizes. In fact, there's 18 different species of them, but 12 of those species are globally threatened because of pollution, habitat loss, and commercial fishing, all caused by humans.
And I thought it was really unfair that the penguins were suffering because of what we were doing, and so I really did want to help.
And that's why she started her organization called Pennies for Penguins when she was only 4 years old. At first, she saved money for chores and donated it to the World Wild Fund for Nature, also known as the WWF. In return, they sent her a stuffed animal and a certificate saying she has adopted a penguin. Well, 22 of them. However, the WWF mainly focuses on changing legislation and developing innovative solutions that protect communities, wildlife, and the places in which they live. All of which takes a lot of time the penguins don't have. So Anya knew Pennies for Penguins had to become more than just donating chore money, and so she created her own penguin fundraiser.
Anytime somebody donated to adopt a penguin, I would send them one of these stuffed animals, and I would donate the money to Global Penguin Society, which I found was actively working in the field.
And even then, Anya knew she had to do more, or in her case, write more.
So I figured that maybe if reading helped me, reading could raise awareness to the rest of the community specifically the youth and the younger youth.
And so she wrote not one, not two, but 3 books.
It happened rather quickly. It was a few months process, and she was so thrilled when she had that first book in her hand. It's just such an amazing feeling to see like the manifestation of something that you worked so hard on.
And it was Anya's books that led her here to the Gumbo Limbo Nature Center in Boca Raton, Florida, which is home of the Gumbo Limbo Coastal Stewards.
We actually were selling her 3 conservation books. So the Gumbo Limbo Coastal Stewards is a 501c3 here in South Florida, and our mission and purpose is associated with the conservation of our coastal and marine ecosystems.
I attended a planning meeting with them, and we came up with the idea of, since they're a nonprofit organization with a board of trustees, we wanted a youth board of trustees. And so the Youth Leadership Council came together, and I'm the president/chair of the Youth Council.
The Gumbo Limbo Youth Council hosts meet and greets to raise awareness, host beach cleanups, and more.
And this idea of e-waste came up. And so we reached out to Gumbo Limbo Coastal Stewards, the nonprofit, and they were so supportive of her.
So I've hosted 2, and together combined, I've collected about 1,750 pounds of e-waste.
So Anya started reaching out to mayors of cities and towns here in South Florida, towns like Palmetto Bay.
So we are very honored today to be able to name E-Waste Day in your honor.
But Palmetto Bay wasn't Anya's first proclamation from a mayor declaring October 14th as the National E-Waste Day. In fact, it was her 48th.
I don't think she expected 48 mayors to say yes to her. Then they all said, please come visit. So she's been running around the state for about 2 months, visiting like Stuart, Florida, and Coral Gables.
But no matter the challenge, Anya is always up for the fight because she knows that in order to see the change, she must be the change, a trait that has inspired everyone she knows.
She is definitely an extraordinary young person, and I know she's going to make huge changes in this world.
I would say you'd be hard-pressed to find another spirited soul like Anya who really does take a sense of personal responsibility when it comes to our environment.
It really gives me hope for the future, because as we're dealing with such big world issues, if we are raising a generation that can step in there and get involved, that's how we're going to see the change that we want to see.
And with more people like Anya in this world, that change will be a reality. That's why Anya's mission boils down to a message of hope.
I hope people all over the world, even not just the country, feel inspired to host e-waste collection drives, host beach cleanups, host events, raise awareness, make themselves into activists, feel passionate about something.
For UMTV, I'm Harvey Duplock. For the nearly 4,000 homeless people in Miami, living on the streets means dealing with constant hunger, poor hygiene, and a lot of misconceptions.
I think that a lot of people think that the population is violent, and I personally have not experienced that. I think that that was probably a stigma that I had coming in, but the more you talk to them, the more they just seem like they could be anybody that you know.
We have had some patients who've had family members who've had lots of like medical care and medical expenses, and they've gone into debt because of that. That can happen to any one of us.
One of the biggest problems homeless people deal with is the variety of serious diseases.
A lot of people don't realize just how sick folks living out on the street can become. I mean, their average lifespan is nearly 30 years shorter than someone who is housed and in the same socioeconomic bracket.
That's why when Dr. Dan Burgolds got into medical school at the University of Miami in 2018, he started a non-profit dedicated to providing healthcare resources to the unsheltered. Its name is Miami Street Medicine. The team is made up of volunteer students from the University of Miami, as well as some full-time employees. Every Saturday, the MSM team meets at Jackson Memorial Hospital in one of Miami's lowest income areas and goes on street runs to provide free healthcare to those who need it.
A huge portion of what we do is we do a lot of wound care. There's also a lot of derm issues that we handle. We get a lot of medications for patients.
And they also go one step further.
We can get patients that follow-up care if we need, if we can't address what they need on that run. We can connect them to somebody to make that appointment with a specialist or primary care physician.
However, setting up appointments and providing quality care to this community has become nearly impossible. In March 2024, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill that will prohibit counties and municipalities from allowing public camping or sleeping on public property, and that would make the work of organizations like Miami Street Medicine much harder.
With the increase in criminalization of homelessness, folks are getting pushed around the city, and they're having all their medications, their IDs, their paperwork, their family heirlooms and things of that nature getting just destroyed in these sweeps.
No matter what happens, every single Saturday we would be on 17th Street, right? And so them being removed from there it has complicated a lot of cases, because now we don't have access to them. We don't know where they've gone. We don't have any form of communication.
The bill says that the Florida homeless should be placed in temporary shelters monitored by law enforcement agencies, but that's not happening.
There are certain monopolies that are basically have created databases, and so they have basically implemented systems and data systems in shelters or places that offer resources where if a person is not registered with said monopolies, they won't have access to these resources.
Which is why organizations like Miami Street Medicine are more important than ever.
Right? It doesn't matter why you ended up in our care, what it is that you need, it doesn't matter. The fact is you're a human being, and at the very basic needs of being a human being, you have right to access and to medical care. And so that's all that we care about.
And that's why, even with all the challenges the Miami Street Medicine team faces, its members will continue to go out every Saturday and help those who need it the most. For UMTV, I'm Harvey Duplock.
You walk in and you're hit with mold. You can see it in the carpets. There's specks of mold in the carpets. You can see it in the walls, and you can see it on the air conditionings.
Mold has been a hot topic of discussion among students at the University of Miami Frost School of Music for months. Many say they have seen mold in the birth of Foster Memorial Building. It was built in 1961 and has some 60 practice rooms for more than 700 students.
And I know that they might be concerned about Foster. And I know this, we make sure every day that fosters a healthy environment.
According to the CDC, mold grows in places with a lot of moisture and grows well on materials like carpet. Every practice room in the Foster building has its own air conditioning unit, is covered in head-to-toe carpeting for noise insulation, and the first floor of the practice hall flooded last year. And some students say they are affected.
Anytime I come out of there from singing there for a long period of time, my chest feels super heavy. I'm sneezing, blowing my nose just from being in there.
The CDC says mold may cause a variety of health issues, such as stuffy nose, wheezing, red or itchy eyes and skin, or even fever and shortness of breath, which is not ideal for musicians who have to constantly use their lungs and vocal cords. The practice rooms are definitely outdated, and there is a distinct smell in there and some suspicious stains, but we couldn't identify any mold, so we went back with a bacteria growth kit, and we're going to see if there truly is a lot of mold and bacteria growing in there. We took samples of a strange substance by the air vent, the actual air vent, piano keys, and a door handle. The results showed that the practice room door handle has 0 bacteria and the piano keys have very minimal bacteria growth. However, the gunk leaking out of the air vent is completely covered in bacteria and even has some mold forming. But worst of all, the actual air vent had some bacteria but is covered in mold. That's what all that white fluffy stuff is. So with this much mold forming, have they done anything to clean up the building?
They have not. The issue is that it is a historic building. It's deemed a historic building. It cannot be torn down because it is regulated by the state.
Except it's not historic. Dean Berg says the status is in limbo, and that's part of why no major changes have been made just yet.
Nobody wants to spend many $1 million for a total renovation of a building that you might be tearing down. So what we do is the very, very best job we can with maintaining the building.
To help control the germs, the school put updated air conditioning units in some of the rooms. Students can also practice outside, in empty classrooms, or in teachers' offices when available, if they don't feel safe in the practice rooms. But they should know they're not the only ones wanting change.
I'll be happy when Foster is finally renovated. But in the meantime, students should report anything to us that they feel is an issue, because things do happen in older buildings, and they should know that we're on this every day. We're not going to allow them to be in an environment that's not healthy for them.
For UMTV, I'm Harvey Duplock.
It seems everything in the Everglades is enormous. The swamp, the alligators, the pythons. But there is one place in the heart of the Everglades National Park that is actually the tiniest of its kind.
This is the smallest post office in the United States. In the world, actually. Guinness says they can't find a smaller one anywhere, so...
Don Walters has been the postmaster of the Ochopi Post Office for 5.5 years. He is responsible for collecting and sorting mail for the Everglades National Park and the Miccosukee Native American Reservation. But luckily for Don, a mail carrier is responsible for delivering the mail along a 135-mile route.
We deliver a couple hundred pieces of 100 parcels a day and probably about 2 or 3 feet of letters and flats and stuff.
But while Don has only been Ochopi's postmaster for a few years, this post office has been here for many decades.
The original post office used to be in this area, just a half-mile west of the current post office. It was founded in 1932 by the father of the Tamiami Trail, James Franklin Jordan. It was a part of the Gaunt Tomato Company General Store. But in 1953, just like most of the original town, it burnt down.
One night a gentleman was going through town. He got tired and he pulled over and he sat on the steps of the general store, lit a cigarette, fell asleep, and burned the whole place down.
And so the Gaunt Company stepped in and saved the day.
They said, move into our pump shed temporarily while we build a new general store. New general store never got built because the federal government came in and took over everything.
And so the post office has been here temporarily now for 70 years. And every year, thousands of tourists from all over the globe come here to take pictures of the building and its postmaster and get the famed Ochopi postmark, which is coveted by stamp collectors worldwide.
So we watched a video prior to coming here, just to understand the history of it before we came here, so that I could appreciate it a little more and understand why it's here.
And although working in a shed with lizards and snakes might not be everyone's cup of tea, it certainly is Don's.
Oh, I love this job. It's the best job in the post office, hands down.
For UMTV, I'm Harvey Duplock.